Here we go. Toronto Blue Jays are the greatest baseball team. We go from coast to coast like the other scene. Canada's gonna win the trophy. Just you wait and see. When you think Blue Jays, you think of victory. Cause we're the Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto Blue Jays #1. We have nothing to lose. Oh, Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto Blue Jays #1. Well, this is it. It is the World Series. And this is going to be a fantastic video that will be released just before the first pitch of the World Series starts at 8 o'clock Eastern Time today on Friday, October the 24th, 2025, which is a famous day because 33 years ago, 33 is my lucky number, Patrick Waugh. In 1992, the Toronto Blue Jays went on to win the World Series in Game 6 over the Atlanta Braves in Atlanta with Dave Winfield's 2 RBI double down the left field line. So, the question on everyone's lips will be, to me, is what have been the 10 greatest Blue Jay World Series moments of all time? So, we're going to look at them chronologically because, let's face it, we all know what #1 is. But yeah, we're going to do the top 10 Blue Jays playoff moments, and we're going to be looking at the top 10 the Blue Jays World Series moments of all time, and the top 10 playoff moments of 2025. So strap yourselves in. So anyway, let's take a look at, first of all, let's go do the top 10 of 2025 as I am wearing the traditional, I'm wearing the 2020s version Blue Jay hat and the Blue Jay jersey, all that. So let's go ahead and do that. So this is chronological for the 2025 playoff moments. First off is Alejandro Kirk's 2-home-run day in LDS Game 1 against the New York Yankees. The Yankees had to beat Boston in the wild card series just to get there, and I think they became the first team to lose Game 1 of the wild card series, but win the next 2 to win the series. I don't think it's ever happened before, which is crazy. But nevertheless, the Toronto Blue Jays were hosting the New York Yankees. The Blue Jays beat the Yankees 8 times out of 13, which was head-to-head, and since they tied in the division, that's the tiebreak, and the Blue Jays would host the LDS with the New York Yankees. So, Game 1 saw Vladdy Guerrero go deep. But let's not forget about Alejandro Kirk, who had a massive day on the final day of the regular season with 2 home runs against Tampa to get Toronto the #1 seed in the first place and the division. But Alejandro Kirk put up a pair of home runs in Game 1 of the LDS and put us through. Moment #2 is Vladdy in Game 2 with his home run, his Grand Slam plantata, as I call him. So it's 5-0 Blue Jays. They were looking pretty good after their big 9-run win in Game 1, which tied the record for largest postseason win in Blue Jays history by runs, and that was Game 1 of the 2016 LDS in Texas. But anyway, the Blue Jays finally won a game for the first time in 9 years in the playoffs. So, Game 2, what did they celebrate? They get the bases loaded when Vladdy Guerrero is at the plate. Nowhere to put him. 1-1 pitch, bam. Left center field, grand solo. La 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 me. Poof. And it was 9-0. Blue Jays went on to win 13-5, if I remember correctly. But yeah, the Blue Jays were up 2-0. All they needed was 1 win in the LDS to move on. Moment #3 was Game 3. Yes, it was a loss, but the Blue Jays were up 6-1, so it looked like the Blue Jays were going to crush the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, nevertheless. It didn't happen. Aaron Judge saved the Yankee butts with that 3-run home run off the foul pole, which actually was one of the few pitches you would see thrown to Judge, and then he managed to twist his body and hit it off the foul pole. Moment #4, Game 4 of the LDS, with the Blue Jays using their pitching and what they called their bullpen game. I was kind of skeptical about that, but it shut me up. The Blue Jays ended up winning the game and going on to the LCS, our first LCS in 9 years, because every time we make the playoffs between after 2016 and early and before 2025, we were skunked. So anyway, moment #5 was, if I look at my notes, was Springer getting the leadoff home run in the LCS. Sorry, Oh, sorry, I screwed up. Number 5 was Trey Yevsavich's 12 strikeouts in 5 innings. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Yesavich. As in Yusavich. Yeah, he had 12 strikeouts in the first 5 innings against the Yankees in Game 2, which set the Blue Jays record for most strikeouts in a postseason game. But yeah, I thought Guzman had it, but yeah, he was great. He didn't give up a hit, and yet they decided to yank him for another pitcher. I would have loved to see if he would keep the no hitter, and then you yank him. But yeah, Yesavich did his job. All right, moment number 6 is George Springer's leadoff home run in Game 1 of the LCS. It was big. Seattle was up 1-0, and then George Springer came to the plate. First batter of the LCS against the Seattle Mariners, who had to go through a 15-inning marathon against the Detroit Tigers just to get this far. But all of a sudden, Springer went deep, and we thought, here we go, we're taking care of a wounded Seattle team. How wrong we were. We ended up losing that game and Game 2 to fall down 0-2 in the LCS, which rarely happens. Moment number 7 is Andres Jimenez getting hot in Games 3 and 4 of the LCS. The Blue Jays had a few good games in the LCS in Seattle, as both Justin Bieber, my ass, Shane Bieber, and Max Scherzer postseason acquisitions to get the Blue Jays over the hump. You know, with the pitching and all that, with Bassett and Berrios hurt, those two guys actually played their hearts out and proved why the Blue Jays went out to get him, especially Scherzer, who told John Schneider, who after he was almost yanked after 4 2/3 innings, I want that I want that out to get to 5 innings and get the win. And whatever. But surprisingly enough, Andres Jimenez, a guy who did not hit too many home runs during the season for the Blue Jays, he got hot and had back-to-back games with a home run and shocked a lot of people, including that Philly fan on um, TikTok, and basically shutting him up. Number 8 is coming back in Game 6 of the LCS. You know the story, you know how it goes. But yeah, the Blue Jays were down 2-0, and the fans were just apathetic in Game 6. However, the Blue Jays used timely hitting, some situational hitting, and they hit the spots with their pitching to win Game 6 to force a Game 7 on Monday, the 19th, the 20th. What am I thinking? Platform number 9 is George Springer's 3-run home run. Yes, it was a massive home run. Mariners were up 3-1. The Blue Jays offense was just stinking to high heaven, just like Game 1. And everyone thought, well, Toronto is always cursed with these sports losses. But then a few key plays, and then they yanked the pitcher for Bazzardo. Bazzardo then serves up a 1-0 pitch that Springer meatballs into left center field, gone, and the guy in the George Springer jersey, went nuts and catching it. And the Blue Jays won 4-3. That was a big home run because I don't think it was ever done before that a 3-run home run by a team trailing by multiple runs in a LCS game ever happened. That's what Wiki told me. So Springer did his job, and a lot of people think that it's bigger than the Jose Bautista home run, the bat flip home run. And it actually is, because Springer's 3-run home run was in the LCS, whereas Bautista's was in the LDS. And of course, moment number 10 is winning Game 7 in the LCS. Everyone was just shocked, very shocked, to see that the Blue Jays could pull it off and actually win the World Series berth. I mean, it was 4-3. It was white knuckle time. Chris Bassett came in to pitch the 8th. Or no, was it Gosman? No, it was Bassett who pitched the 8th, I think, right? Well, Bassett or Gosman. And then we used Jordan Romano to come in to save the day. Well, I wish it was Jordan Romano. It was Jeff Hoffman. Jeff Hoffman came in for the big save, and the Blue Jays won the game after striking out Julio Rodriguez on a full count. Because if it wasn't for him, if Julio got on, Cal Raleigh was next in line. But the Blue Jays did it. They are going to the World Series as of this moment, of course. October 24th is the biggest day in Blue Jays history in 3 decades. So let's switch hats here. I'm still debating whether to wear the pillbox for game one, but I will probably wear the pillbox for game one because, after all, it's the first Blue Jays game in 33 years and the first Blue Jays game, World Series game, that my dad is not with us because, my dad was there for many years. And then, of course, in 2020, he died of pneumonia. So this is my dad's hat, by the way. So, I'm wearing this in tribute in the game one stream. Anyway, let's look at the top 10 Toronto Blue Jay World Series moments of all time. Well, number one is getting to the World Series in the first place in 1992. I mean, the Blue Jays were known for choke jobs. 85, they lost the LCS to the Royals in a game 7. They were up 3-1. If the LCS format from 69 to 84 had happened in 85, the Blue Jays would have went to the World Series to take on the St. Louis Cardinals. But oh no, they changed it to the best of 7, and the Blue Jays needed that 4th win, and it never came. Of course, Pat Sheridan's Jim Sundberg's windblown triple off the right field wall ruined the Blue Jays. It was the only other Game 7 in Blue Jays history, other than, of course, 2025. 1987, the Blue Jays had the AL East sewn up, but they choked in the final week, not winning one game and losing both Tony Fernandez and Ernie Whitt to injury. 1989, they choked in the LCS to the Oakland Athletics because, Ricky Henderson was a one-man show. 1990, the Blue Jays lost the division on the final day because Boston won their game. 1991, the Blue Jays couldn't take care of Minnesota, a dome team at that, and Joe Carter got injured in Game 3. 92, the Blue Jays finally got out of the hump. So, the Blue Jays making the finals was huge. They got rid of their demons thanks to Robbie Alomar home run in Game 4 when they were down 6-1 and came back to tie the game and won on a sac fly in extra innings. So, making the World Series was the hardest thing in Blue Jays for that moment. Moment number 2, Ed Sprague going DP2, what can you do? Game 2 of the 92 World Series. Blue Jays were in trouble, and basically Ed Sprague came into play. David Cone did well. The Blue Jays picked David Cone up for Jeff Kent. Who knew how good Jeff Kent would have been? But it didn't matter. I mean, the Blue Jays had Robbie Alomar. And you don't put Jeff Kent at shortstop, although you could have tried. But anyway, the fact is that Ed Sprague came off the bench against Jeff Reardon, who was this fierce closer who they picked up for the Red Sox. And then he parked a 2-run home run to make it 5-4, and it was amazing. The Blue Jays won that game and took the split. Moment number 3, Game 3 of the 92 World Series, of course. I mean, it has to be. I mean, the fact that Game 3 was huge. The U.S. Marine Color Guard wanted the Canadian flag after they accidentally pointed the flag upside down. But instead of an international incident, like it could have been nowadays, they cheer, like the fans cheered the Marine Corps carrying the Canadian flag and all that. It wasn't that big of a deal. So, and then Game 3, Devon White sleeping catch at the wall, and then Sanders and Pendleton passing each other on the baselines, meaning that was out number 2. And then Deion Sanders apparently getting tagged on the heel by Kelly Gruber. He was, but Bob Davidson called him safe. He was a National League umpire, so I kind of figured there was some bias there. Nevertheless, the Blue Jays ended up winning the game thanks to Kenny Maldonado's single. Robbie Alomar, after that, would tomahawk his way home. Moment number 4 is Game 4, in which Jimmy Key, in his final start as a Toronto Blue Jay, actually pitched a fantastic game. He was one of the best Toronto lefties of all time, and he did his job as the Blue Jays took care of the Braves. I think this was the game in which Bobby Cox got tossed for throwing a helmet onto the field. I think it was Game 3, but anyway. Moment number 5 is Game 6. Game 5 was no moment. Linus Smith's grand slam. Ruined off Jack Morris, no way. So Game 6 was huge because the Blue Jays were up 2-1 in the ninth. Tom Hankey, reliable as he is, blew it. And it was 2-2. So it went to the 11th. Dave Winfield with 2 runners on, and Terry Pendleton not guarding the line on Winfield, not thinking that Winfield could go down the line. Because Dave Winfield, for how good he was in his career, just couldn't go down the left field line. And he sucked in the World Series. But Winfield pulled a ball down the left field line, which scooted around the left field corner past Ron Gant, making sure the second run scored to make it 4-2 Blue Jays. Atlanta got one back. John Smoltz was sent in to pinch run at third base, and Otis Nixon tried to surprise Mike Timlin with a bunt. Didn't work. Timlin knew what to do, flipped it to Joe Carter at first base. Game, set, match. The Toronto Blue Jays were going to be World Series champions. And as Sean McDonough of CBS says, for the first time in history, the World Series flag will fly north of the border. The Toronto Blue Jays are baseball's best in 1992. All right. Moment number 6 is the 93 World Series opener. The Philadelphia Phillies, the team, the ragtag, like the gas house gang of the 1990s, if they will. They were basically unshaven people. So the Blue Jays hosted the 93 World Series because at the time it was by rotation. That's why Atlanta hosted the 92 World Series, Game 1, and the Blue Jays in 93. So the Phillies came in, shocked the 104-win Atlanta Braves in the LCS, winning in 6 games, thanks to Lenny freaking Dykstra, who I think hit a leadoff home run or something. He did well in Game 1, but it didn't matter. The Blue Jays struck back, and then L. Leiter, with the bases loaded in the 6th, made a fantastic pitch, getting John Kruk out with the bases loaded. And then the Blue Jays added a few runs to win the game 8-5 in Game 1. Moment number 7 is Game 3. And the massive move in Game 3. There was a massive rain delay, which almost saw the game moved the next day. But Game 3 stayed on. And Cito Gaston making a massive move and actually putting Paul Molitor into the game instead of John Olerud, and benching the AL batting title champion John Olerud. A lot of people were upset by that move. But Molitor put up a triple and a home run in Game 3, 10-3. Blue Jays were up 2-1. Moment number 8? Yeah. Moment number 8 is Game 4. The Blue Jays were down. The Blue Jays in Game 1 got 3 runs in the first inning, but Philly countered with 4 runs. At one point, after 7 innings, it was 14-9 Blue Jays trailing. And then the 8th, innocent ball just got past Dave Hollins at third base, and little did we know that it would be a snowball effect. Mitch Williams was brought into the game to try to quell the Blue Jays. He did get a quick out, but then a 2 RBI single, I think by Fernandez, or Henderson, made it 14-13 for the Phillies, and then another 2-run play, a triple that eluded Lane Dexter in center field, made it 15-14 Toronto, and it's the second most runs in a playoff game, 29. Well, it's the most in the World Series history. The only game that beat 29 runs was Cleveland losing to Boston 23-7 in 1998 ALDS. Or was it 99? I think it was 90. I think it's 99. Yeah, that was when Pedro had that great Game 5. But yeah, the Blue Jays did what they could. They win 15-14. They were up 3-1. Number 9 was the massive MVP chance for Paul Molitor. Now, of course, you know how Game 6 ended, and that's moment number 10. But moment number 9 is when the Blue Jays struck early with a 3-0 lead, and then Paul Molitor in the 5th inning hitting a home run to left field, and fans were massively chanting MVP, MVP. And Tim McCarver, who was doing the color commentary for CBS Sports, said there was another Paul Molitor, I think Paul Molitor for PM, and in Canada, they're going to do the Prime Minister elections. Those elections in 1993 were big if you were part of the Liberal Party, and terrible if you were part of the Conservative Party, because they were the ruling party of Canada since 1984. But Brian Mulroney and his group failed miserably. Mulroney left, and Kim Campbell won the Leadership Award over Jean Charest to be Prime Minister in June. And she was Prime Minister for like 5 months, and then they fell terrible. The Conservatives were so bad, they only got 2 seats in the Canadian election. Two. A lot of people attributed that to their mocking of Sean Chrétien's Bell's palsy because of that sagging face, and that basically sagged Conservatives stuff. But nevertheless, that was big, and Sean Chrétien became Prime Minister, and the Liberals ruled till 2006. Nevertheless, That was that. And number 10 is obviously Joe Carter's home run. The ninth inning started big. Mitch Williams was on the mound to close it out and force a game 7. Unfortunately, though, he threw not one, not two, but 4 straight balls at Ricky Henderson, the greatest leadoff hitter ever. Now, if you watch the World Series video of 1993, you see a fan upset and putting his flag over his face. But then he basically tells another patron, he's like, "Oh well, at least we got the top of the order up because that was big because you got Henderson, you got Whamco like Henderson, White, Alomar, Molitor, Carter, Olerud. If they didn't do that 8th inning mini rally that didn't score a run, then they probably would have been at the bottom of the order." So yeah, Henderson walked, and Mitch Williams pitched out of a slide step to try to neutralize Henderson. Molitor would hit a single after Devon White popped out for out number 1. So Molitor singled. It was first and second, and then Joe Carter came in. He swings at ball 3, and you're thinking, oh man, what a terrible move. And then a 2-2 slider. As Sean McDonough goes, now the 2-2. Hit a line down the left field line, way back and done. After a while, Joe Carter with a 3-run homer. The winners and still world champions, the Toronto Blue Jays. And then it was pandemonium in the dome and all that. Well, that was major and all that. Of course, Tom Cheek's call of swinging a belt, swinging a drive to left field. Blue Jays win. Touch 'em all, Joe. You'll never hit another home run bigger than that. Obviously. It was the second time the World Series ended in a home run, as Bill Mazeroski in 1960 did so in Game 7 against the Yankees. So anyhow, that was huge for the Blue Jays, especially with the fact that, what a job by the Blue Jays. Mitch Williams was traded to Houston. Philly fans would never let him forget it. And, it started Toronto's poise and all that. And they would win the World Series. So anyway, that is all I've got. And hopefully the Blue Jays win again. Because after all, Toronto Blue Jays, Toronto Blue Jays, Toronto Blue Jays #1. Let's go, because we're the Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto Blue Jays, Toronto Blue Jays #1. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Thanks for watching. Adieu.